I drove out of the big city parking garage after my company's year-end party. The sky was dark, the ground was shiny and wet, and freezing rain tapped softly on my car windows like tiny pebbles. My name is Nissa Thane. I'm 36 years old. I work as a senior project manager at a big medical company in North Carolina, and most important of all, I am a single mom. My little boy Eric is 8 years old. He usually stays with my dad when I have late work events. It has always felt safe. At least I used to think so. I was tired but happy to finally be going home. I turned onto our quiet street and the bright car headlights shined across the front porch. The moment the light hit the steps, my whole body froze. Something felt wrong. Really wrong, like when you walk into a room and know something bad has happened even before you can see it clearly. On the top step of the porch, Eric was lying down in a way that didn't look normal. His body was twisted like a toy someone had dropped. His face looked pale like paper and his chest moved only a tiny bit, like a small bird breathing very carefully. He had one shoe missing and his backpack was still on his shoulders. It looked like he had been waiting for me but never made it inside. My younger brother, Eamon, was leaning against the porch wall. His arms were crossed and he had a smirk, one of those half-smiles that looked practiced, not real. "Just roughhousing," he said with a shrug. "Kids are dramatic." My dad stepped out from behind him. He looked calm, almost too calm, like this was nothing at all. His wife, Ilara, stood beside him in her silk robe, sipping tea as if it were an ordinary evening. "He's fine," Dad said, voice flat. "Boys fall. They get back up." Ilara nodded. "He probably just scared himself." But my heart was already pounding hard. My purse slipped from my shoulder and fell to the wet ground. I ran forward, my heels sliding on the wet concrete. I dropped onto my knees beside Eric. The rain soaked through my dress, but I didn't care. My hands shook as I touched his cheek. Felt too cool. I pressed 2 fingers to his neck, trying to find his pulse. I finally felt one, very light, very weak. My fingers trembled so much I kept dropping my phone before I finally called 911. "My son, my 8-year-old, he's not moving right. Please come fast." The minutes crawled by like slow snails. 9 minutes felt like 90. Finally, sirens screamed down the street, red and white lights flashing everywhere. 2 paramedics jumped out of the ambulance. The lead one's badge said Idris Eamon. His partner pulled a stretcher and oxygen tank. Idris knelt beside Eric and checked his eyes and his pulse. He looked serious. Then he lifted his head and stared at my brother. I saw his face drain of color like someone turned down the brightness. He stood and walked slowly toward me. He spoke so quietly only I could hear. "Ma'am, is that man really your brother?" I nodded, confused. "Yes." "Why?" Idris looked toward the porch again, then back at me. "Because 3 years ago in Georgia I went to a call that looked exactly like this. A child lying on a porch. Same story about falling, and a man standing in the same place with that exact same smirk." For a moment the world felt like it tilted sideways. Eamon's smirk flickered, just for a moment, before settling back onto his face. Idris turned to his partner. "Priority 1. Possible poisoning. Possible child abuse. Let's go now." They lifted Eric gently onto the stretcher. His small body looked even smaller against the orange straps and silver rails. I climbed into the back of the ambulance without asking. Idris didn't stop me. He shut the doors and we sped away. Through the tiny back window I saw Eamon already looking at his phone, typing quickly. Dad and Ilara stood beside him, arms around each other, watching the ambulance drive off like this was someone else's problem. Inside the ambulance, Idris put wires on Eric's chest to check his heart. He started in 4. His voice stayed low, steady. "I testified in that Georgia case," he said. "A 9-year-old boy. Same kind of problems. Same kind of bruises. The adults said he was clumsy. The charges were dropped because of a paperwork issue. The whole family left town. I heard they moved east. I never thought I'd see that man again." I looked down at Eric's small hand in mine. It felt cold but still holding on. When we arrived at the hospital, doctors rushed him away. I waited in the hallway until morning light began to fill the windows with soft gray. A doctor came out, Dr. Virel Arden, the head of the Children's Emergency Department. She looked tired but kind. "Your son is breathing on his own now," she said. "We cleaned his stomach, gave him charcoal to help remove the medicine and started strong fluids. His blood tests show he swallowed way too much of a medicine meant only for adults. He's also very dehydrated and has bruises that look older and newer. By law, we have to report this right away to Child Safety Services and the police. I nodded, my throat too tight to talk. She said, "He's asking for you. He's awake." I walked into room 412 feeling like my feet weren't mine. Eric looked so tiny in that big hospital bed. Wires were taped to his arms and chest. Little plastic tubes helped him breathe. When he saw me, his chin shook. "Mommy," he whispered. I sat next to him and held his hand. He talked with a small, tired voice. "Eamon said the orange juice was special juice for big kids," he said. He said if I didn't drink it, he'd tell everyone I still wet the bed. It tasted really bad, like medicine. My heart cracked. Then my arms and legs felt heavy, Eric said. And I couldn't stand up. He pulled me to the porch and pushed me down on the steps so you'd think I fell. He said you'd cry and look crazy and then Grandpa's money would be his. I felt every word like a sharp poke in my chest. Eric's eyes filled with tears. "I tried to be brave, Mommy. I'm sorry I drank it." I held his hand against my cheek. "You did everything right," I told him. "You're the bravest boy I know." A nurse came in to check his IV. I kissed Eric's forehead and stepped out to the waiting area. Eamon sat there with his feet up on a chair, scrolling his phone. Dad read an old magazine. Ilara sipped coffee, legs crossed like she was on a relaxing break. I stood in front of Eamon. "What was in the orange juice?" I asked. He didn't even look up. "Nothing. Kids are dramatic." Dad closed the magazine. "Nissa, you're exhausted." Eamon was just playing. Ilara added, "Eric has always been sensitive. You work too much." I stared at Eamon, the same brother who used to push me on the tire swing in our backyard when we were kids. "He's 8 years old," I said. "And you call this playing?" Eamon finally met my eyes, smirking still there. "Prove it," he said. Something inside me snapped like a stick breaking clean in half. I pulled out my phone and called the only person who could turn "prove it" into something real. Daylion, my best friend since college and a man who knew how to find information fast and quietly. He answered on the first ring. "It's me," I said. My voice wasn't scared anymore. It was angry. "I need everything you can get on Eamon Thane. Travel. Messages. Bank stuff. Burner phones. Everything. Tonight." Daylion didn't ask why. "Send a photo of his driver's license," he said. "I'll have the first packet in 6 hours." I looked at Dad, at Ilara, at Eamon. "Leave this hospital," I said. "Don't come back. Don't call. Don't text. We're done." Eamon stood up slowly, stretching like he had all the time in the world. "Good luck with that, sis," he said. They walked away without even looking back at me. I returned to Eric's room and sat beside him as he slept. I held his hand until morning sunlight filled the room. A few hours later, my phone buzzed loudly against the chair. I stepped out so it wouldn't wake Eric. Daylion didn't bother with, "Hello. Screen share." "No," he said. I opened the secure link he sent. The first folder was called Eamon Master. Inside the folder, the first file was a scanned picture of a page from our grandfather's trust papers. My heart started to beat fast as I read it. It said something like this. If Eric ever had trouble taking care of money because of sickness or something serious, the whole $4,200,000 would go to the next male in the family, Eamon. The picture had been taken secretly with a phone. The info on the picture said it was taken inside the nursing home office in Greensboro where Grandpa stayed. Daylion then showed me a short video from the building's camera. It clearly showed Eamon walking in wearing a blue Duke hoodie, signing the visitor book, talking quickly to the worker, then leaving 27 minutes later. That same week, Eamon bought a burner phone with cash from Walmart. That same night he filled up his car with gas and drove south. Stop 1, Mont, Georgia. 420 miles. 6.5 hours. He checked into a hotel under a fake name. Paid in cash. Stayed 1 night instead of 3. Then I left. And suddenly everything made sense. The next afternoon, a 9-year-old boy collapsed in the parking lot of a Dollar General store after drinking a free orange soda that a friendly-seeming stranger had given him. The boy's mother thought the man was just being nice. But when the child suddenly fainted, she panicked and called for help. At the hospital, doctors found very high levels of diphenhydramine in his blood, almost enough to be life-threatening. The mother insisted that her son had never taken medicine without her knowing. But the investigators didn't look deeper. They simply called it an accidental poisoning and closed the case. The man who gave the drink Eamon continued traveling. He drove hundreds of miles to Montgomery, Alabama. He used a different fake ID. He paid for everything in cash so nothing could be traced. At his next stop, an 8-year-old child at a library summer reading program was offered a special punch by a pleasant stranger. 10 minutes later, the child collapsed in nearly the exact same way as the first boy. Again, the same drug was found in his body. And again, the investigation didn't go anywhere. Police assumed it was accidental. Eamon kept moving. Stop 3, Birmingham. Same pattern. A free drink, a sudden collapse, a child rushed to a hospital. Stop 4, Lexington, Kentucky. Stop 5, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Over and over the same thing happened. But Eamon was not doing these things randomly. He was practicing. Every time he changed one small detail. The amount of medicine he used, the kind of drink he offered, or the location he chose. He was testing and adjusting. He wanted to find the right mixture that would make a healthy child collapse long enough for doctors to believe something was wrong with them psychologically, but not enough to kill them. He wanted the children to live, because a dead child can't qualify for a medical review related to inheritance. A living child with medical problems could. Dalion, the investigator, discovered toll tag records, surveillance videos from gas stations showing Eamon traveling alone, pharmacy footage of him buying adult-strength Benadryl with cash, and motel logs proving only one person ever entered the rooms he rented. There was no second driver. No partner. No secret helper. Just Eamon acting completely alone. My father and his wife Alaire were not involved in the trips. They never went with Eamon anywhere. At first they didn't even know what he was doing. But everything changed after the Georgia trip. Eamon came home bragging over a steak dinner about how Phase 1 had gone perfectly. They didn't ask what he meant. They didn't demand an explanation. And when the news later mentioned strange incidents involving children fainting in different states, they quickly changed the subject. They didn't plan the crimes, didn't buy anything for him, and didn't touch any of the victims. But they protected him by staying silent. While I was staring at the timeline Dalion had sent me, another message arrived from him. It said, he's been waiting for Eric to be old enough to trigger the medical review clause. Your son was always on the final exam. I closed my phone. I walked back into hospital room 412 where my own 8-year-old son Eric was sleeping, still recovering from what we now knew was not an accident. Eamon had spent 3 months poisoning children across several states, all so he could perfect a plan to steal money that did not belong to him. And my own father had chosen not to confront him. After Child Protective Services placed a temporary hold on Eric's case, the hospital assigned 2 plainclothes deputies to stay with him. I left him in their care and took the 6:05 a.m. flight out of Raleigh-Durham Airport. I was not going to wait anymore. I needed proof from the other families, the families who had been hurt before us. My first stop was Atlanta. I landed at Hartsfield-Jackson, rented a gray Camry using a new corporate card, and drove 420 miles to Monroe, Georgia. The mother I had contacted met me in the parking lot of a Chick-fil-A off Interstate 85. Her hands were trembling so much that she could barely hold the documents she had brought. Her son, now 11 years old, sat in the back seat of the car, watching me with eyes that showed he still remembered everything. She said, Eamon called himself Chris. He gave my boy an orange Fanta at the park. 10 minutes later he collapsed. Doctors said it was the highest diphenhydramine level they'd ever seen in a child who survived. The police had said it was an accident. He never believed them. She handed me a notarized statement and a thumb drive. On it was video from her Ring doorbell camera. Eamon in a gray hoodie, smiling as he handed her son the bottle and casually walking away afterward. My second stop was Montgomery, Alabama. I flew in, rented another car, and drove 380 miles to meet the next parent. She met me at a Cracker Barrel just off the interstate. She quietly slid a sealed envelope across the table. Inside were medical records, toxicology reports, and something shocking. A pharmacy receipt Eamon had thrown in the trash. A janitor found it, thought it looked strange, and saved it. Her son had been 8 when he drank special punch at the library and collapsed. Now he was 12, and she said he had suffered night terrors for nearly 2 years afterward. She had saved the empty bottle in a freezer bag. Dalion had already sent it for an independent lab test. The results showed diphenhydramine mixed with codeine. My third stop was Lexington, Kentucky. I landed at Bluegrass Airport, rented a third car, and drove straight to meet the next family. The father met me outside. His son had been 9 when Eamon gave him free lemonade on their front porch. The father handed me everything he had collected: the SD card from their doorbell camera, the original hospital record showing the drug levels, the child's therapy notes, and a notarized affidavit. He held himself together until the very end, when his voice finally cracked as he said, "Tell that man he didn't win." My fourth stop was Chattanooga, Tennessee. I drove 6 hours from Lexington to get there. The family invited me inside. Their son, now 10, sat on the couch holding a drawing he had made of the nice man with the blue cooler, as he remembered Eamon. The parents gave me the cooler itself, wrapped in an evidence bag. Inside was an empty Gatorade bottle. The lab report confirmed the same chemical mix as the other cases. They also gave me another SD card, gas station footage showing Eamon filling the cooler with ice and powdered medication at 2:14 in the morning. Every single family gave me 3 things: a sworn, notarized statement, or original medical proof, or video clearly showing Eamon acting alone. Every motel record, receipt, and toll tag confirmed the same thing: Eamon worked alone. I flew home carrying 4 sealed boxes of evidence and 4 thumb drives. My stomach felt heavy the entire flight. Back in Raleigh, I met Daylion at a climate-controlled storage unit he had quietly rented through a small shell company. Inside, the lights were bright and long folding tables were set up. We spread everything out in careful order. Affidavits were arranged by date. Medical timelines were color-coded by state. A large map showed every location with red pins marking the exact mileage Eamon had driven. We had Amazon order histories obtained by subpoena, burner phone tower pings, and the times he purchased supplies. All of it fit together perfectly. The final piece of proof was a voicemail Eamon had left on the family lawyer's phone months earlier. The lawyer had saved it, unsure if it mattered. Eamon's voice said, "Hey Mr. Malachi, quick question. If my nephew ever got diagnosed with severe anxiety or something, and 2 doctors said he couldn't manage money, the trust would go to me, right? Just asking for a friend." By the end of 15 days, I had built a federal case thicker than a dictionary. Daylion and I carried the boxes to the FBI field office on New Bern Avenue. Special Agent Celine Kairos met us. She flipped through the first folder, looked up at me, and said exactly what I needed to hear: "This is airtight. We're taking it from here." For the first time in weeks, I felt like the world was finally shifting in the right direction. Eamon still believed he was safe. He had no idea the storm was already forming around him. The night of the Pharma Innovation Awards came. The December air was cold and sharp, and the sky above the Raleigh Convention Center was full of stars. I stood in the green room, smoothing my midnight blue silk gown. My reflection looked calm, but inside every muscle was tense. 10 days earlier, I had sent out invitations printed on cream cardstock with gold lettering. They announced a family photo opportunity and a champagne toast to celebrate Keelan Thane's birthday. My father, Ilara, and Eamon RSVP'd almost immediately. At 6:42 p.m., Eamon walked through the private entrance. He wore a sharp black Tom Ford suit with a white pocket square. His hair was perfectly slicked back and he looked like he was stepping onto a runway. He kissed my cheek and gave me the smirk I used to know so well. "Big night, sis. Proud of you." Dad came in behind him in a navy tuxedo, his arm linked with Ilara's. Her emerald satin dress glimmered under the lights. They all posed for the photographer I had hired, but the camera equipment had been prepared by the FBI with perfect timestamps. Eamon threw an arm around Dad, smiling widely. I guided them to the VIP table in the center of the room. 400 executives, investors, and reporters filled the hall. Spectrum News was broadcasting live. My company's live stream reached 60,000 viewers. My boss stepped onto the stage and announced the award of the year. And our 2025 Employee of the Year, for the 2nd year in a row, Nissa Thane. The spotlight shone on me. I walked up, took the crystal trophy, and faced the microphone. Behind me, the huge LED screen turned bright white. "This award isn't really mine," I said. My voice did not shake. "It belongs to every child who has ever been hurt by someone they trusted." Slide 1 appeared on the screen. Eamon at 19, hoodie up, buying Benadryl in Georgia. Slide 2. Eamon giving the red bottle in Montgomery. Slide 3. Eamon walking away in Lexington. Slide 4. Eamon pouring powder in Chattanooga. Slide 5. Eamon photographing the trust clause. Slide 6. The clause itself highlighted. Slide 7. His voicemail to the lawyer asking how to inherit my son's trust. The entire room gasped. 4 teenage boys stood up from different tables in the crowd. Ages 14, 15, 16, and 17. All 4 turned and pointed directly at Eamon. "That's the man who hurt me," the Georgia boy said. "He did it to me too," said the Alabama boy. The Kentucky and Tennessee boys couldn't speak. They just cried. Eamon's champagne glass fell from his hand and shattered. The confident smirk disappeared. His face went pale. He looked at me with wide, shocked eyes. His lips moved soundlessly before he finally screamed, furious and broken. "My plan was perfect." He ran as fast as he could, knocking over chairs in his hurry. People gasped and jumped out of the way. He was trying to get out the side door, but 2 serious-looking agents in dark suits moved in quickly and blocked him. He stumbled and fell hard onto the floor. His dad shot up from his seat. "That's my son," he shouted, his voice full of worry. Alara, who had always been close to us, grabbed Dad's arm, shouting my name over and over. She was trying to pull him away from the agents, but more people were coming. 4 additional agents moved in from the sides. Dad was told he had broken the rules by getting in the way. Tomorrow he might get into even more trouble for trying to help. The boy on the floor struggled, twisting and turning. His face was red with anger and frustration. "You tricked me. You're jealous," he yelled, pointing at me. One of the agents gently but firmly pushed him back down so he couldn't get up. Above us, the live camera showed everything that was happening. People from all over the world were watching. The counter on the screen rolled past 5 million viewers, and it was still climbing. I took a deep breath and looked straight at the nearest camera. "This is what happens when someone tries to hurt a child for money," I said, my voice loud enough to carry across the hall. The hall erupted into chaos. People shouted, cameras flashed, and phones were raised high to capture the moment. The boy was dragged away by the agents, still yelling and struggling. Behind him, Dad and Alara cried, their faces full of sadness and worry. I stayed on the stage until the last set of handcuffs clicked. Then I walked off, holding the heavy trophy in one hand and Eric's safety and future in the other. The announcer's voice came over the loudspeaker. "The 2025 Employee of the Year is Nissa Thane." 400 people in the room stood and applauded. I walked up the 3 carpeted steps to the stage, took the heavy crystal trophy and stood at the microphone. The lights dimmed slightly and the massive screen behind me flashed pure white. I smiled, the same smile I had practiced in front of the mirror many times. "This award isn't really just mine," I began, my voice steady but full of emotion. "It belongs to every parent who has ever had to protect their child." The first slide appeared on the big screen. It showed the boy Eamon doing something very wrong that had hurt another child. People gasped, their hands covering their mouths. The second slide showed him doing something else dangerous, and the third, fourth, and fifth slides showed more troubling events. My heart ached as I clicked through them, but it was important that people understood. 4 young boys stood up from tables across the hall. 1 from Georgia, 1 from Alabama, 1 from Kentucky, and 1 from Tennessee. They pointed directly at the boy who had hurt them. "That's him," the boy from Georgia said, his voice shaking but clear. "He hurt me for practice." The Alabama boy stepped forward. "Me too." The Kentucky boy just stared, tears rolling down his cheeks. The Tennessee boy's eyes were wide, but he nodded quietly. The boy Eamon went pale. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then he screamed, "You tricked me," again and bolted, knocking over chairs as he tried to escape. 2 agents in black suits moved faster than anyone could imagine. They stopped him and he fell hard on the floor. His dad surged forward again, shouting, "That's my son. Let him go." Alara grabbed Dad's arm, shouting my name, trying to pull him away from the agents. More agents moved in. Dad was told he had interfered with an important arrest, and Eamon continued to twist and struggle on the floor. I looked straight into the camera again. "This is what happens when someone thinks money is more important than a child," I said. People in the hall shouted, took pictures, and waved their phones high in the air. Eamon was dragged away, still screaming. Behind him, Dad and Alara were crying. I stayed on stage until the last handcuffs clicked. Then I walked off, holding the trophy in one hand and Eric's future in the other. Almost a year later, everything came to a head at the courthouse. It was a cold December day and snow lightly dusted the streets outside. The final decisions were announced. Eamon, who was now 23, stood in an orange uniform as the clerk read his punishment. He had done many bad things and the court had decided he needed to face the consequences. He didn't flinch. He just stared at me, lips curling into the same smirk he had always worn, until the marshals led him away. Elara had taken a plea the week before and was given time in a secure place to think about what she had done. She cried when the judge read her sentence, mascara streaking her cheeks, begging to say goodbye to her son. The judge didn't allow it. Dad stood last. He had taught me to ride a bike, to tie my shoes, and to believe in myself. Now he wore handcuffs and looked years older. He kept his head down the entire time. When the gavel fell, he finally looked up at me. I met his eyes, then turned away. The trust that had held all the money was dissolved the same week. The full amount, $4,200,000, was transferred into a new, safe trust with Eric as the only beneficiary and me as the sole trustee. A separate civil jury awarded an additional $3 million in damages to make sure Eamon could never take money from us in the future. The same day the ink dried on the papers, Eric and I changed our names. We became Eric Arden and Nissa Arden. We got new birth certificates, new social security numbers, and moved 3 hours west to a quiet street outside Charlotte. We went to new schools, found a new pediatrician, and started working with a therapist who specializes in helping children recover from trauma. Eric still woke up some nights screaming Eamon's name, but the screams were getting quieter. In the spring, Eric started playing travel baseball. The first time he hit a grand slam and rounded third base, he pointed at me in the stands, grinning so wide the coach said his face might crack. I cried harder than the night it all began, tears of relief and happiness mixing together. Dad wrote to me once from prison. He had 3 pages of handwriting explaining that he only wanted peace in the family and never meant for anyone to get hurt. I read the first paragraph, then walked to the backyard fire pit and burned the rest. Eric roasted marshmallows over the ashes and said, "The orange glow is pretty." I told him, "It's the prettiest fire we've ever had." Elara's birthday card arrived in June. I wrote, "Return to sender, person unknown," in big red letters across the envelope and dropped it back in the mailbox. Eamon tried to appeal his punishment, but the appeal was denied in a 21-page opinion. The court said his behavior had been among the most carefully planned and harmful the judges had ever seen. The other 4 boys, now teenagers, started a private place online to chat safely. They named themselves the 5. They play games like Fortnite, trade baseball cards, and sometimes talk when nightmares come back. They call me Aunt Nissa, even though we aren't really related. They call Eric little bro. We became family together even after everything. Kept my job. My company gave me a bigger title, a corner office with real windows and unlimited work from home days. With the first money from the settlement, I started the Safe Haven Trust, an anonymous fund to help single parents whose kids are being hurt by family members. In the first year, we helped 41 families move, change their names, and disappear safely. Some evenings, I sit on the back porch watching Eric chase lightning bugs across the yard. He catches one in a cup, holds it up to me, and says, "Look, Mom. It's still glowing." I smile and we open our hands together, watching the tiny light rise into the dark night. Free. If anyone out there is listening and someone in your family is hurting your child, hear me. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are not alone. Record everything. Save everything. Fight for your child's life, because sometimes monsters don't hide under the bed. Sometimes they sit at the dinner table wearing the face of someone you once called family. Justice can come, but only if you are brave enough to bring the truth into the light. Eric ran up to me with grass-stained knees, carrying the jar full of fireflies. "Can we let them go now?" he asked. "Yeah, baby. Let them go," I said. We unscrewed the lid together and watched every single firefly blink into the night sky. Each one floated up, tiny lights disappearing into the dark, like hope and freedom all at once. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely at peace. We were safe. Eric's future was secure. And together we had created a new life full of light, laughter, and hope. The past was behind us, but the lessons we learned would stay forever. Love, courage, and protection were stronger than fear or greed. We went inside that night, holding hands, and Eric whispered, "Mom, can we make a wish?" I smiled. Of course, baby. Always. And we whispered our wishes together, knowing that no matter what happened, we would face the world together.